Hey, everybody, I'm Dr. John Sherk, and it is Wednesday morning, 11 o'clock Central, and that makes this Brown Bag Lunch, where I bring you little nuggets in 8-minute chunks to improve the lives of air conditioning technicians, whether you're the one who employs them or are married to them or are yourself a technician. Just a little happy for me before I get started on today's topic. Today, if you know a little bit about me, if you've watched these before, you know my grandfather was a technician. My mother worked for Johnson Controls for 40 years. I wrote a doctoral dissertation on technicians and live in the air conditioning world from that side of it. And this morning, my son started his first day as a technician, working for a Deem Mechanical in Indianapolis. Appreciate you guys for giving him his first job as a technician. Super proud of him, and it's a super happy day at this end. So having said that, I want to talk about your competitors when you're recruiting, or who's for the technician side of it, how to think about when someone else is offering you a job or is recruiting you. So you've heard me say before that there's kind of two ways to think about recruiting. There's one way in which you're just offering jobs, and there's another way in which you're solving problems. Okay. And at this point in time, we have the lowest unemployment in Western history. Since the Civil War, the unemployment rate has never been lower. Meanwhile, Gallup is telling us that about half of the American workforce across the board is either actively looking or watching for another job. So we have this unprecedented dynamic in American history of so many people looking, but so many people employed. And what's happened in that context is it has made offering jobs to people an obsolete notion. It's not obsolete. It's an ineffective strategy. Let's say it better that way. It's an obsolete strategy. If what you do is offer jobs to people who already have them, you're not solving a problem. They already have a job. And what happens in that context is, if Earl the technician is sitting on his couch, and he gets offered a job, Earl's wife loves this job. She thinks that's a terrific job. But if Earl's working for ABC Mechanical or XYZ Mechanical or whoever, and you offer Earl a job, Earl's spouse is going to start asking a lot of questions. Are you sure? Because we're giving up something if you take that. Are you sure you're not out of the frying pan into the fire? Are you sure what you think is equal is actually equal? And it becomes a different thing. That just the notion that someone's coming from another job to you in recruiting changes the entire conversation. So in order to be effective in your recruiting, and in order to be effectively recruited, if you're a technician, you need to think in terms of what problems you have or what problems they have in their current job and how to solve those problems. Right? We've talked about this before. What are the big 5 problems? Can't pay the rent this month. Need more long-term security. Number 3, they want better relationships where they feel like they're on a team and they're getting more respect. Number 4, they want a chance to advance or feel status. And number 5, they want to do what they do best every day. And if they're not getting that where they are, and you can meaningfully and with integrity promise that they will get that where you are, that is the bridge that begins this conversation. Okay. So in that context, I want to talk about who you think of as your competition. If you're the one doing the recruiting, and I want the technicians to hear the same thing from their side of it. So if you get into the process of recruiting technicians based on solving their problems, your competition is no longer another company. So if you mentally position yourself as competing for talent with other companies who are competing with you for talent, that is the path that creates are wage wars. And we may say, if you're a technician, great, I want to make as much money as possible. You're going to make plenty of money. Okay. But mentally, if you put yourself in a position where that's how you compete for talent, you will create jobs that cost too much to leave, and it creates another problem later. Okay. Every labor market in America has at least one company who's just out there saying, I'm just going to buy the talent and I'm going to pass the cost to the customer. They're doing T&M work. They can get away with it. Boom. Okay. There's a downside to that, though, because when someone finds that job where they could not make more money anywhere else, bills tend to grow into that size of compensation. And now you're in a cul-de-sac you can't get out of. Okay, so now you're systematically creating the highest cost and lowest engagement workforce in town, right? So what's the other route? Well, it's understanding the problems that they have and developing your culture and methodology for how you deliver work so that that problem gets solved. Now, if you do that and you're recruiting a technician, your number one competitor is not another mechanical company. It is do nothing. In other words, it's a risk for me to leave where I am as a technician and come to you. And even though I know I have this problem where I'm at, maybe I just want to live with that problem as opposed to taking the risk of coming over to you. Right now, again, normally we mitigate that risk by increasing the wage. And some of that is still appropriate, right? But if you're able to tell the story of you solving that problem in a way that is credible, credibility lowers that risk as well. Okay. So if you have, a claim that our people are treated fantastic, we have terrific culture here. We have high quality managers. We quote, take care of our people that way. If that's the claim you're making, then you have to figure out how to say that in a way that is credible enough that it reduces that risk profile on the technician who's considering making that change. Okay. We're talking about social media. We're talking about testimonials. We're talking about, whatever you can do to make that a credible claim. Because if you're the employer and you're just saying that, it doesn't mean nearly as much as if someone who works for you says that. Right. So the do nothing competition is something you have to learn how to compete against. Right. What is the cost of doing nothing? What is the cost of living with that problem as opposed to addressing it? This becomes the recruiting conversation, right? And part of what I do when I train my clients in how to recruit, this is part of the training. You have to be able to have a conversation about, okay, that problem you're living with, how's that play out for you over the next 5 years if you decide to just live with it? Okay. So, number one competitor is not another company. Number one competitor is do nothing. Number two is I can take care of this myself. I'm not going to live with this problem, but I don't have to come to you to solve it. Okay. Now this is where you have to kind of navigate. This is going to have a more specific thing based on what the problem is that they feel. So you have to know like what is the problem and do you really is it in your power to solve it? Or have you talked to them about it? Yes. Have they done anything? No. If you talk to them again, do you think they'll solve it? I don't know. Right? It's getting into the question of I can do this myself. I don't need your help to solve this problem. I can solve it myself. Okay. Now, there are other competitors, but you should consider 80 to 90% of your competition, those two things. Now, you're also competing with small companies who can offer you a certain kind of experience, but harder to advance, or big companies with a different kind of experience. It's not so great relationally, but there is room to advance, or just solving it some other way. I talked to a technician. They're like, I'm just getting out of the business. Here's how I'm going to solve this problem. I'm starting my own company. Okay. So there is the small company, the market leader, and other, but fundamentally do nothing. And I can do this myself are who you should think of as your competition. And in all of your social media that goes into recruiting, all of your conversations that go into recruiting, your number one, you need to think of every time you look at a technician, you need to think of what's the problem they have that would get solved if they came to me, not that they need a job because they already have one, but what problem in that job can I solve? And I'm now competing with do nothing. So how do I compete with do nothing? I compete with do nothing a little bit, 10% with wages, 90% with credibility. How do we get credibility? Can't come from you if you're the owner. Not on this stuff. It's got to be testimonials and feedback from the people who work for you. This is why getting referrals from the people who work for you is so powerful, because the referral has built in this credibility, because they're already saying to that prospect that you want to hire, we don't have it that way where I'm at. It's hardwired into the referral itself. Okay. So You're solving a problem, not needing a job when you're recruiting. And when you solve it, when you take this approach, from the moment you take that approach, your number one competitor is do nothing. I can live with this problem, so I don't have to deal with the risk involved leaving here and coming to you. Okay? Listen, I'd love to talk with you more about this. We are rolling out a historically big effort at Operations Laboratory. We're literally onboarding 9 salespeople in the next 10 days who are going to, some of you are going to hear from us, I'm sure, to install your internal recruiting machine. So for roughly the cost that you would use a recruiter to get one person, we're going to help you build an internal machine that will produce like a goose that lays golden eggs, a never-ending supply of prospects to recruit from. So if you'd like to find out more, please comment below and I'll reach out to you, or just keep your eye open for us. We have about 5,000 air conditioning companies we're going to talk to over the next 3 months. So if you are in this business and you need some help recruiting, and if you've noticed, like I have, one at a time, recruiting is just getting incredibly expensive. I talked to a person, a client the other day who needed a construction admin, like somebody who could manage construction. He paid $25,000 to a recruiter for that person. And 1 year later, he had to let her go. Right. So the better approach is to build the machine so that when you need the people, you've already met 5 of them and you already know who you want to pick from. Okay. So reach out. I'd love to help you with that. That said, it's been Brown Bag Lunch, and I hope to see you again next week.